make it work. Going to school full time, working full time. I ain't have a lot of leeway to be knuckleheaded at that point.
And I think one of the things that you said that was really good that I clued in on was that these kids are trying to make it work and figure it out, and they want to make their way. Welcome. This is For Better and Worth,
The podcast where we don't believe you have to sacrifice your relationship while you grow and build your net worth.
We are your hosts.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Ericka Young, and we're so glad you're joining us today.
All right, y'all, let's get into it.
Hey, honey. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How you doing today?
I'm good.
We always say that.
I know, right? We do.
I think typically we're always doing good, but, sometimes, this feels like work. We got to come to work. So
it is work. And as a matter of fact, insider perspective, because it's work, I mean, when we're doing that on the weekends, or we don't do it too much on the evenings, but
we do a lot of after work stuff.
Yeah, and so sometimes we are dragging, to say the least, or we don't feel like, listen, we don't feel like coming to work,
but we feel like putting out content
yeah,
that is going to help impact people's lives.
And
but
we love it.
Look, we're just trying to keep it 100.
Yeah, and we love
Keep
our
it real.
listeners. I feel like we're getting, a lot of great feedback. So we press through, and it's kind of like therapy, a little bit. Like you don't want to go, but you're gonna feel good after you
after
have
you
come
went.
back.
You're like, man, that was good. I'm glad I did that. So
yes. So,
but I think we're gonna shoot off the cuff today, and I think we have a lot of conversations offline, and we think about our life and the lives of our children and just people around us, our friends and family. And we have decided that there's a lot of knuckleheads out there.
Yes. And that means you're hard-headed. Okay?
Right.
So,
I know growing up, our parents used to say, hard head make for a soft behind.
Right.
And I was thinking about that the other day. Was like, well, what does that actually mean?
It means that as soon as you don't heed my advice, that means you getting a spanking.
Tear your behind
yes. Up. Okay? Or in this case, life will tear your behind up.
Right. So we just don't want you all to be knuckleheads. Because when I say knuckleheads, I mean doing things that you're not supposed to do. Mm-hmm. Especially things financially or even things in a relationship. Like, I think there's times in relationships that people egg each other on. Mm. And I know that you say sometimes I play too much. But, it's all in a good spirit. With you and I.
You know what? Let me just say.
But I think other people, press their partner's buttons unnecessarily.
Wait a minute. Okay. I'm so glad you got that off your chest. You only say that so you can keep messing with me. You are like, okay, so insider note again. Chris is the baby of the family.
Well, hold on. I'm no baby.
No,
I'm
we
the
know
youngest.
this. We know this, but the baby
youngest
is always the baby. Give me a break. Come on, your mother always. You were your mama's baby. Come on. Even as an adult with your own kids.
Look, my mother cared for her youngest child.
Okay, true. But listen, you were the baby. You were the antagonizer. You were the one, I promise, if I had known you when you were 6 and 8 years old, you were that one that people would say, you play too much, stop it. So it's okay to have a joke, to poke a little fun. But see, what happens when the joke goes too far?
See, that's what we're saying. Don't be a knucklehead, going beyond the joke. Know when to say when.
So the next time this joker
I know when to say
fun.
when.
No, you do not. You honestly do not know how to say no. Look, or to stop. You don't know when to say when.
People who know me personally that may hear this podcast or see this on YouTube, you know what I'm talking about.
No, anyway. Okay, so back to the subject matter at hand. He don't know he don't know how to identify when he's being a knucklehead. Let's just be clear. But I think that's true for a lot of folks. We don't know when we are resistant to sound counsel, sound wisdom, or like when somebody is telling us to make an adjustment here or there. And I think
Look,
that can affect our money all the
look, we
time.
can joke about me playing and messing around with you, but it's all in good spirit. It's all in jest, right? But I think there are people in relationships that do antagonize the other person. And you would think, well, why are we in a relationship if you're going to antagonize me to get, some response? And people have weird things that go on in their relationships that work for them, that may not work for other people. But I think the whole point of not being a knucklehead is not pushing your spouse or partner or SIGO to a point that's going to cause them to respond negatively to whatever input that you're giving them.
So I'm curious on how you see that this shows up, like people being a knucklehead with money.
Oh, when you do things spontaneously without discussing it with your partner. Or like I've heard how people will come home with a car that they haven't discussed, and I don't understand how that's possible.
Literally, I would go ballistic.
I think both of us, I know you wouldn't come home with a car, and I wouldn't either. But if somebody did that, I could only imagine the other person spacing out. But I think that's an extreme. But even scale that back to, you're going out to lunch every day with your coworkers. It's like you got to know when to say yes and when to say no. And if you were going out to lunch every day with your coworkers and it was on us, I'd be like, hold on, that's a little much.
Oh, treating everybody at the table.
Or I'm not even treating yourself every day. That's too much.
Well, and let's add the caveat that if you're doing that and it is affecting your personal budget, it's something you haven't agreed upon.
If you haven't decided that I'm going to budget to go to lunch every day versus taking my lunch.
Right? Yeah. Like y'all have not agreed upon this. So that's definitely
that's a simple example.
Right.
Like what would you say is an example of somebody being a knucklehead financially?
So this came up because, and I'm not calling my daughter a knucklehead. I'm not going to say that specifically.
You know what? Just use examples without identifying people.
I know. I already did it. So
yeah, just go ahead with it now.
I already did it.
We love...
See, you said the name. I didn't even say the name. I didn't do that.
Daughter, we love you.
But it came up because we have a young adult who is navigating life on her terms for the first time. She's figuring out lots of things. And
as we all had to do
on her own in a completely different state. And I think the challenge when that happens as a parent, seeing it from afar, we think if only you had done A, B, and C, it would make your life easier.
Yeah.
And so it came up because in the last month, lots of things have happened. Now, I understand that these things were not all her fault, but it costs money somewhere, right? So someone rear-ended her and she has some car damage, and that's a challenge, and we had to help her navigate that.
Which we're supposed to do as parents that have experience and skill in that. But so I was happy to help navigate that, especially because it wasn't her fault.
Right. But deductibles are still a thing, right? And that'll need to get paid. And then also,
Well, fortunately, she will not be paying a deductible because the other person who hit her, their insurance is paying for it. So in that case, that's a blessing.
It is
for her.
But
if she had done that otherwise, she would have had to pay that deductible out of pocket, which could have been an issue.
Plenty of times with her where we said, hey, you should do A, B, and C, and she chooses to take a different path. Or, for instance, she was trying to get on the flight and her bag was, the dimensions were too much. Her bag was too big for what they were trying to do. We won't get into specifics, but it was going to cost her some money. And so there are just these extra things that happen in people's lives when if you had just taken the extra step to either measure or weigh your bag before you leave, that can help you, right? And so
I gotta give her some kudo. It's not what I would choose to do, but she was choosing more of a budget airline because the prices for flights were better.
she was trying, but it didn't work
Yes,
out in her
yes.
favor.
In this particular instance, it
And
didn't work for
so
her.
so here's the thing. So this is the balance, right? When you're trying to do the right thing, I guess the other thing is it knucklehead behavior if it turns out to,
Not work.
not work out for you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because was
That's
it worth
interesting.
it?
That's
Was it worth
interesting
it?
because you could have maybe just paid a little more for a flight that probably wouldn't have the issues with the baggage.
Mm-hmm.
Because like Southwest is that's my lowest. I like Southwest,
Yeah.
but you get 2 free bags. But for long haul trips, maybe not because every seat is the same.
Yeah.
But they usually have sales and stuff. So and we know that going from where she's at to here, that could have worked out potentially. But
And let's have equal opportunity here because we have 2 young adults.
that is true.
And our other child was having challenges with her apartment, and they were charging her for its lack of cleanliness in general terms, right?
Yes.
And not all of it was her fault, but it's still a cost. And so when you think about being diligent to know how to take care of the assets that you have or your residence or your vehicle or what have you, these are things to think about. Like, just listen to sound wisdom. All right. You have to keep your place clean. You might have to go the extra mile to ensure that, things look up to par. That stuff is costly in the end.
I think at the end of the day, what we're talking about here is being mindful of how you approach life in general. It could be, how you're going to move with travel, and are you going to choose a budget airline or are you going to pay a little bit more? Or, if you are going out and you're buying a home or a townhome or whatever it is, there's value there, but you got to make sure that you're taking care of it. Or if you're renting an apartment or whatever, you got to care for that like it's yours so that when you move out, there's no additional cost. But I think the bigger thing that I would get at when we talk about don't be a knucklehead is learn from the experience of others who have done it or navigated those things for you. Because I think, young adults and especially parents, like us that have young adults, you want to go and they want to figure it out and they want to find their way. And I respect that to some degree because I applaud the independence and the wanting to learn. But in the midst and the process of that, no matter who you are, what stage you're at, there's some example you can look to that can help you navigate, whether it's you're starting your early career or you're a mid-career or you're a late career person, and maybe you have saved, maybe you haven't saved, maybe you need to adjust or shift. I think there are examples in 2024. People get their information and their news sources from so many places. Whatever you want to know about, there is a way and a means to find out about it.
Do you ever feel that you've been a knucklehead in financial matters specifically?
I would say I feel like in my life, I probably have been like super conservative and tried to do things and err on the side of doing the right thing. So I don't know if I've been as much of a knucklehead, but I know I've made a few knuckleheaded decisions. And
Like what?
I think about like, when we were selling our first home, I felt like I was being a knucklehead and I was being influenced by other things than the reality of just leaving the house on the market and just selling it for what we could get it for. We were trying to get the highest value.
We were knuckleheads because we didn't listen to our realtor tell us to lower the price.
Right. And I felt like
And
in
we
that
paid
moment,
for that.
I don't know if it was greed or what,
Or
but we were
pride.
like, you know what, the market is doing this. We should be able to get this. And so we were like, we're going to stand on this. But if I could go back, that's the one decision that I definitely would have changed was lower the price, sold the house, moved on, got the next thing.
Yeah.
So I think in that way, I was a knucklehead. But I feel like when I was younger, I was trying to just make things make it happen, make it work. You know, going to school full time, working full time. I didn't have a lot of leeway to be knuckleheaded at that point.
And I think one of the things that you said that was really good that I clued in on was that these kids are trying to make it work and figure it out, and they want to make their way.
Mm-hmm.
And I can respect that too, but it seems like they want to do it the hard way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think you remember when we got married and like moved across the country, and the day we landed,
oh man, it was a disaster.
What we had to encounter in order to establish ourselves.
Yes.
We had zero help. We had, no parents who could assist in our move or give us any money.
First of all, we were 2,000 miles away from our parents.
We moved 2,000 miles away. And neither one of us started our jobs right away. And we were trying to establish ourselves.
We had a little bit of money.
We only had the money from our wedding, you know. And that day, it was wild. And we saw, I believe we saw God's blessing and his covering, to be honest, on that specific day that we landed.
We didn't open the Pandora's box, so we got to tell people a little bit. You know, we landed and we didn't have our cars. They were in transit, so we were going to get a rental car. And we were young. We didn't have like credit cards or a lot of credit cards and stuff at that time.
Well, we didn't have.
We had available balances.
I didn't have any available balance on my credit card.
That's probably more accurate.
Yes.
We didn't have available balances.
Yes.
And we needed to rent a car. And we hadn't, I don't think at that point we had really rented cars before. But we had cash, and we were like, oh, we can go in here. We can put cash down. They were like, no, you need a credit card. And this was 20 some odd years ago, and we could not get the car. Mm-hmm. So we literally had to we were at the airport trying to rent a car. We had to take a cab to our apartment.
We did know where we were going to live. We didn't have to go look for a place.
We were just going to sign the lease and stuff.
Sign the lease.
And we went there and we took care of all that stuff. And we were just, I guess, building rapport with this leasing agent and just shared what had happened. And the woman said, I don't know what it is about you two, but I'm going to let you borrow my car.
A perfect stranger. And
we had just met her.
She said, can you drive a stick? And I was like, well, I can't drive a stick.
Unfortunately, I could drive a stick shift because I used to have one. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this is unbelievable that you're going to do this. But I wish I had someone to help us navigate that. But I think it made us stronger together just on day one, starting our lives in a new place. And then we went and took care of all of our business.
So we were able to go take the car, to go open up a bank account.
Start up some utilities.
Get our utilities turned on. Take care of the business at hand. Because we didn't know what we didn't know. Yeah. That's the honest truth. We just didn't. No one showed us, this is what you're going to have to do first, second, third, and fourth. And that was key to me when I realized this is adulting.
Adulting can like hit you upside the head, because when we were at that airport, said no car, trying to figure it out, it was like boom, upside the head. And
because we just didn't know that it required a credit card. We didn't know how much extra we were going to. And then I think, if I'm not mistaken, we had to put a deposit on our utilities because we had to establish that on our own for the very first time. There were just all of these extra hurdles that made it even more challenging. And we had that woman's car all day till nearly 5 o'clock. All she
said was be back to pick me up
with some gas in that car.
We put gas in the car, and I think she might have dropped us off somewhere, but it was a major blessing that she just was willing to help us like that. Mm-hmm. And so I think, just thinking about don't be a knucklehead is learn from the lessons of others. Yeah. Seriously, or like today, I know people get their news on Instagram, TikTok, news media streams, like whatever it is. I'm not saying you should be getting your news from Instagram and TikTok, but I know the reality. People watch reels all day. Mm-hmm. And whatever it is, learn from examples that are out there.
Yeah.
I
think as an adult, one of the things that I did listen to was always invest in our 401k. So we've always done that. a knucklehead move at one point when we were early on and we were trying to get our houses. We did cash in.
Oh man, yeah.
Our 401k in order to actually have the down payment. And
well, we didn't cash in.
We cashed mine in.
I don't know. I know when we got married, I had a little one that we cashed out. Instead of transferring it, we cashed that out.
We cashed mine in and we had to start over. It was only a year after we moved there, but we did take it out. It was not even that much money, to be honest with you. But these are the hard-headed lessons that we end up having to learn, because we look back and we're like, dang, I wish I hadn't done that.
Mm-hmm.
What would that, $1,200? It wasn't even that much money, but what would that have done, or grown to? But I think, like, when people tell you, these are things I would have you to avoid, that's definitely one of them.
Believe them.
Believe them. Don't take money out of your 401k. Be prepared. Make sure that you actually have. And I don't know that it's saying a whole lot to say have your own account and have a debit card and make sure you got room to be able to navigate a move. But these are some wise ways to avoid calamity. Always have in your emergency fund the amount that you need for a potential auto repair or a deductible. Ask questions.
I think that, like, anybody who's listening to this isn't for just young adults. This is for anybody.
Right.
You could be 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, whatever, because people enter different phases of life. And I know, like, right now, your mom is moving from one state to another. And that in and of itself requires some preparation and some planning. And you need to learn from people who have done it.
Right. My mother's never moved across the country. And one of the biggest things is difficult for her to wrap her mind around what all it takes to move across the country.
Yes.
We've done this a few times. And so in an effort for her, I'm not calling mom a knucklehead. I will say I don't want her to be hard-headed and not listen. And so I've shared.
I think that's what I'm saying is, like, no matter what phase in life you're at, you can learn from the examples of other people.
I had to walk her through, Mom, this is what's going to happen this day. Yep. This is what's going to happen this day. This is what's going to happen this day. We're going to set this up. So I had to walk her through that, not just once, but multiple times, in addition to the other people who are involved in this move. And that.
But I think that speaks to the fact that when you're in a situation or you're in a scenario and you're close to it, you can't see the finish
big
line.
Picture. Yes.
The big picture.
Yes. You don't have vision for that.
That's why you have to take lessons from others. You have to seek insight from those who have done it. And it can be relationship, it can be money, it can be anything.
And you have said to me, so I'll be real open and say, I would not be able to walk my mother through these steps if you weren't the person, not that you're navigating that behind the scenes, but because I know how detailed you are in stuff like this. Like, when you get in travel mode, you better get ready. Not to mention a move or navigating some huge endeavor.
I'm a project manager.
You are you're a great one. Yeah. And so but I have learned from that, the way that you are methodical, that's what it is. The way that you are methodical, so that I can share how this method is going to work.
It's not you play too much then.
No.
It's like, oh, okay, yeah, he for real.
No, I respect the gift, right? Like, not everybody has that. And so, but I've learned, and I'm also an engineer at heart. Like, I need to see the steps for myself. But
you definitely move very
process oriented. So I had to share those things, and then in the end, I showed Mom. I said, this is what it looks like to be hard-headed. So if these things don't happen by the time we are ready to move you, here is what's going to happen.
Right.
So I appreciate when someone says, this is what this looks like. Like, now I feel like with our kids, we can definitely say to them, you already know. You've been through this process with these apartments. You've been through this process with your vehicles.
Look, this is what it looks
end looks like if you don't take my advice. Period.
And look, I'ma still be real. Is like sometimes you still gotta let people do their own thing and go their way because experiential learning is sometimes one of the best teachers as well.
It's so hard to watch.
Yeah,
It's so hard to
it's
watch.
very hard to watch, but I remember a long time ago, one of our, pastors or somebody said how you can only live off the experience of one person until you have to go and get experience of your own. And I can respect that and I believe that, but I also think that in getting that experience, you can take a moment to pause and say, what's the best way to do this? What's the
Yeah.
best way to navigate? Let me go to my trusted sources that can help me make decisions in this whole process because you have to look at the problem and evaluate and assess it and then work to solve the problem. And sometimes you got to get outside input. And it's that outside input that empowers you to make a more defined decision. And I think that's the thing that I really want people to think about, whether you're in a financial bind or relationship wise, you're in a situation where you have to navigate or maneuver. Take a pause sometimes because sometimes when we are impulsive or we're just, responsive or reactive, we don't give the best response or we don't give the best reaction. And sometimes if you take a moment to formulate your thought, then that way you can make it worth it.
So, well, I was going to say, are you ready to make it worth it?
Let's make it worth it.
So, do you have a make it worth it?
Well, I mean, I guess
You might have already
might have been saying it, but
you might have already been saying
well,
it.
I think, in not being a knucklehead, to make it worth it is see the big picture. Because you got to count the cost of whatever it is. Because every decision has, alternative outcomes. And sometimes if you can just stop and think about it, what those potential outcomes can be, the better way to make it worth it is to seek the input or insights from others. I feel like financially, there are so many financial gurus and experts out there that whatever question you have, you can find an answer to it. And then you can make your decision based upon knowledge. And if you do that, I think you can avoid pitfalls and you can avoid looking back and saying, man, I was hard-headed or I was a knucklehead at the end of the day. So I think that's how you make it worth it. But What about you? What's your make it worth it?
Before I go to my make it worth it, I'm going to piggyback off of what you said in talking to people because I remember when we were young and we knew nothing and we were trying to understand this whole financial stuff and we would go to financial advisors or insurance agents or whatever. We would just ask questions.
CPAs.
Yeah, we were just asking questions and trying to learn and trying to understand and see, if there's one piece of advice you would give us, what would that be? And so seeking out mentors and people like that, even
That's a
if
good point.
you're not going to do business with them, like that's a really
mentorship is a big deal.
It's a huge deal. And then the other thing, okay, so for my make it worth it is don't be afraid to ask questions cuz and you also mentioned something that I think is really a coaching principle to think about where you want to be. This is what I will ask people. Where do you see yourself in 6 months? Where do you see yourself in 12 months? And have that future vision. And if the decisions you're trying to make right now are not in alignment with the future vision, then something needs to adjust and change. And so I think we're so focused on right now that we don't look far enough into the future to figure out who it is that we really want to be. And that is the challenge. And I think when you see it further off, 5 years down the line, what would you like to see? Are my behaviors today lining up with that? A knucklehead behavior is really like saying you want to be able to retire early, but spending, 20%.
Not doing anything to help get there.
Well, spending 20% of your income on dining out. You know what I mean? Like saying you want, this vacation into the future, but right now you're spending all of your extra money on, kid activities. Saying you want, so like, we don't think of our future self in context of today. And if somebody looked at our behavior, I think they would call us a knucklehead if they saw that. They'd be like, that just doesn't make any kind of sense. But we're so emotionally involved in our life that we don't, think that far. And that's why I like coaching, because I know I get a chance to help people see beyond their current circumstance.
Yeah, I think people want the best and want the outcomes, but man, the work that's involved sometimes is not what people want to sign up for.
They don't want to do the work. So
yeah, but it's the work that's required to get where it is you want to go, want to be. Because I go back and I even think about, like, when I was in college or even in high school, I had a job and I played football, but I would go work after football practice, or off season I was working. And I think about all the years during college where I had like jobs every summer or during school while I was paying for school. Did I want to do that? No, but I saw the bigger picture is that I needed to get that degree at the end of the day. And even in grad school, when I had a wife and kids and a full-time job and all the work that was associated with getting an advanced degree, did I want to do it? No, but I knew the outcome would be something that could benefit me.
Yeah.
And that's where we all have to make that decision, is what are you willing to do? Are you willing to put like your pride aside to have someone help you navigate and ask those questions? Or are we just going to be like, no, I'm going to do it my way.
The hard way. Listen, the hard way. The hard way is not always it. Listen, if I could learn from someone else and avoid the pitfalls,
man,
on any topic in my life and gain perspective, that
sign me up.
But I think in 20s and 30s, we might not have said that. So I'm hopeful that others will feel like, you know what, I'm not
take heed to these lessons, these nuggets we're dropping, people.
Yeah, these old schools over here.
Why you gotta end everything with that? I mean,
it's real. I mean, this is 25, 26 years of marriage that we.
Yes.
So that's wisdom. Come on, I am not about to diminish the work that we have put into our relationship and our life over the last 25 to 26 years.
Has it been perfect? No. But we are working through it and we are working it out.
We're works in progress.
Yep.
So.
But hey, until next time.
We're out.
Thank you for spending some of your time with us today.
We appreciate all of your support. So be sure to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen to this podcast.
You can find us on Instagram at For Better and Worth.
And sign up to receive our free guide, The 7 Reasons Your Money Relationship Isn't Working with Your Partner, on ForBetterandWorth.com.
Until next time, we're out of here.